RC and co-lawyers offer our services in immigration law. In this subfield of law, you will learn about the many subclasses made available by the Minister and the Department of Home Affairs, including visitor visas, study and training visas, family and partner visas, working and skilled visas, and refugee and humanitarian visas, as well as other visa avenues particular to your circumstances, including resident return visas and bridging visas. We also offer our services and guidance in citizenship applications, merits appeals, and judicial review on immigration matters. If you have questions in relation to Australia immigration matters, please do not hesitate to contact us at RC & Co Lawyers.
Being a popular choice for migration and one of the world's strongest economies in the world, many opt to migrate to Australia for its diversity and overall quality of life. It has always been a popular choice for individuals all throughout the world who desire to migrate, and the Australian migration program does not discriminate and is open to anyone regardless of where you come from. If you are a non-resident and would like an opportunity to live, study and work in Australia, there are many visa options available to you. Hi everyone, I am Desiree. Well, here we are again, ready to provide you with the facts about permanent residency in Australia. Everything you need to know, you will all find out today in this event. We have with us today Attorney Rochelle Castro, immigration lawyer of RC & Co Lawyers, and Dr. Juno Parungao, co-founder of GHCareer Philippines, to discuss all possible ways to attain permanent residency in Australia. Attorney Rochelle Castro, amongst other areas of law, practices immigration law. Her experience includes 14 years working in boutique to mid-tier firms in Victoria, Western Australia, and New South Wales. Attorney Rochelle Castro holds a Juris Doctor degree and is a regular speaker of various industry events. She is also featured in various magazines and national newspapers that are available online, where she speaks about the areas that she specializes. Her previous career as a university lecturer strengthens her ability to communicate not only to her clients, but also to various industry stakeholders during training and speaking engagements. She is effective, resourceful, and clear as a legal advocate and advisor. She understands that her clients must be given value when they seek her legal guidance, and such value includes educating them about their best legal options. Please welcome Attorney Rochelle Castro.
Good morning. It's another pleasure to have you viewers in this live stream, and we're very excited to share with our guest, GHCareer, for this topic. Before I proceed, I'd like to bring up my slides. We will be tackling today in this live stream the road to Australian permanent residency, or what we call PR. Before I proceed, I've got a short video for you. Enjoy.
Passengers for flight GA6.
So what we'll be discussing are actually 4 umbrellas of the visas. Some of them do not lead to PR, but there's a number of them that lead to PR. So what I've decided to proceed in respect of how we will approach, and for you to understand what visa suits you, what we've done is break it down into 4. So we have the family stream permanent residence visa. We also have the work stream permanent visa. We have the business or investment stream permanent residence visa. And we also have the other options. We'll then proceed all up to 2 case studies that we have. Next slide, please. So we'll start first with the family stream permanent residence visa, or what I will call PR visa. So the first category focuses on family. Remember and keep in mind, although a number of our viewers may hear what is common in American visas, if you look at Australian visas, it is different. What may follow in the America or US visas, a number of them, or significant amount of them, do not apply to Australian visas. But definitely there's an opportunity if you do have family members in Australia. The first one is partner visa. A partner visa could lead to a PR if you have either you have a de facto, as what they call, you've been living in with a person, or you have a husband or wife who's already a permanent resident or a citizen in Australia. The second one is if you are about to get married. That's another PR visa. Another one is a tourist visa, which could fall under the family stream. It does not lead to a permanent residency, but what it is an opportunity for family members of those who are Australian or PR residences who can visit Australia. There's also another visa available for families of Australian citizens or permanent residents, and that's the e-visitor visa. E-visitor visa are visas that the applicant can make online, and it is available only to selected countries. There's also the ETA, the Electronic Travel Authority. That is an automatic visa that is available for, again, selected countries, where it is issued within 2 days, but it's only available for selected countries. As I've said, there is a partner visa, and there's 2 ways. So you see number 1 and number 6, there are 2 ways to apply. You can apply for a partner visa whilst you're outside of Australia, but you can also apply for a partner visa whilst you're in Australia. There's also available for New Zealand citizens, family relationship visa. Next slide, please. Let's continue with the family stream permanent visa. There's the sponsored family stream. So this allows for families, for children to support their parents. There's also those aunts and uncles who can support their nieces or nephews. There's the frequent traveler stream visas, and this usually suits either business entities who travel in and out of Australia. That's available. There's the temporary activity visa. These types of visas are available to those who have special activities in Australia or special events. And that also includes the temporary work international relations visa. Another one that is available under the family stream are training visas. There's also the student visa, the subsequent entrant visa, and subsequent entrant visas are visas available for family members whose initial family member has entered Australia already. Next slide, please. In the family stream, we have what are age-dependent relative visas. So these are this type of visa is available for family members who are the only ones left in their home country. Another visa is a remaining relative visa. Another one is the orphan relative visa. That's also available if clearly it's for orphans, and there is a sponsor, a relative in Australia who is willing to take on the orphan relative. There's a carer visa, and these are where the visa is available to a person, the applicant, who wishes to take care of a family member who is an Australian citizen or an Australian permanent resident. And of course, we've got the parent visa. Next slide, please. We've got the age parent visa for the family stream, PR visa. So this is for parents. Age parents are parents from 65 years old and above. That's available. Contributory age parent visa are for parents who are age 75 and above. And you see there from items 27 to 30, there are different types of contributory parent visa. But the reason why there are 4 categories is that there's no automatic flow for parent visas to permanent. You first have to be the parent has to be granted a temporary visa. After 2 years, then there's an automatic rollover for a permanent visa. This is one of those visas that cost quite significant, but there are children who are willing to invest on their parents to live permanently in Australia if they wish to do so. This is one of those visas that takes quite a while, because what happens in Australian list, the immigration of Australia, is that there's a cap number of parent visas that are granted each year, and that's why there would have to be many, many years that you would have to wait for this type of visa to be granted to a parent. There's also the sponsored parent visa, but that's granted temporarily. Next slide, please. Family stream, I did mention tourist. Now, if there is an Australian citizen or an Australian permanent resident who has a parent overseas, a tourist stream visa could be an option. A tourist stream visa is where they can live here temporarily. And if there is a good history of touring here for a number of years, Australia would reward that by granting up to 3 years to 5 years to 10 years of continuous residing. And there's multiple entry in and out of Australia. But of course, it's a temporary visa, meaning they're not allowed to work and they don't enjoy the benefits of a permanent resident here in Australia. But what's good about it is there's freedom to come in and out of Australia because of that long-term tourist visa. We've got the dependent child visa, which is under the family stream, of course. And that means that if 1 or 2 of the parents are either citizens or permanent residents, there is that dependent child visa that's available. And there's the adoption visa. If an Australian resident or a permanent resident or an Australian citizen would like to adopt in another country, that's what the adoption visa is for. Next slide, please. So before I move on to the next umbrella, I'll summarize what the family stream permanent visa is for. Family stream permanent visa are for families where there is either a child, a sibling, a mother, a father, an aunt, or an uncle, and it's limited to those numbers, not second cousin, not cousin. Those are not available to second cousins or cousins, but it's available to those early family members that I've mentioned when it comes to family stream. But if you're looking into obtaining a permanent visa with your first family unit, when I say your first family unit, that's you, your brothers and sisters, you're not married yet, you're single. And if half of the children, at least half of the children are already at least an Australian permanent resident, you can apply for a parent visa. So we call it the family balance test, wherein parents can apply for permanent residency, but in stages, the temporary visa and then the permanent visa, on the condition on one important element. And there's many more, but one main important element is that at least half of the children are already Australian permanent residents in Australia. We now move on to the second umbrella, which is the work stream. What if you don't have family members? Or what if it's only your second cousin who's in Australia, who's a permanent resident or a citizen? You then look into your skills. That's another way to enter and to get your PR. And Workstream is all about your skills that you have acquired. It's about your education. And most importantly, that have recently, for the past number of years, been important to Australia, at least the minimum requirement for English, your English ability. And in my view and our observation, it's been more accessible with the right guidance and the right training when it comes to getting the English requirements being met. So let's look at the work stream. One is the crew travel, and this is usually granted for seamen, people who work in a cruise ship and they enter into Australia temporarily. Another type would be the maritime crew visa. That's under the Workstream PR visa. The super yacht crew for entertainment activities. This is usually for celebrities. For sporting activities, particularly in Victoria, here in Victoria, this is the center of all the sports activities in Australia. There's a lot of activities such as Formula One, the Melbourne Cup, the horse racing, of course, Australian Open. These are just one of the many sporting events that occur in Australia, and there's a visa available for that. Of course, I'm a Filipino and I'm a Catholic myself. That's how priests in that particular religion, the religious work visas are also available. And also there are particularly for large organization, social and cultural activities, there's particular visas for them. Next slide, please. So those are the specific types of skills. But what if let's say you've got accounting skills, you've got engineering skills, you've got welding skills, and it's been through a number of years. These are the different types of visas that are available for you. Skilled regional visa. Regional is if you're in the Philippines, regional meaning it's the province area of Australia. And what the Department of Home Affairs is doing is actually granting the visas, but spreading, thus requiring the immigrants to actually spread to the regional area. And it's actually quite strategic. That is so that the population would spread and that the CBD or the Central Business District is not overcrowded. It's quite smart. And that's the reason why there's a number of the visas that I'll take you through that would focus on the regional areas. And one of them is skilled regional visa. There's for those who have distinguished talent visa. That's, for example, if I'll give an example, academic, and you have been awarded on multiple international awards, there's a specific visa called distinguished talent visa. Or you have won, for example, in the Olympics, and you are to come here for training. There's that visa that's available. There's also the global talent visa, where it's expanded because what Australia is doing is attracting the best talents around the world to migrate here on Australia. And if you're interested in knowing what that is all about, the Global Talent Visa, give us a buzz. Skilled Work Regional Visa, that's a temporary visa that has a pathway to PR. Skilled Employer Sponsored Visa, so that's a visa that actually where you find an employer in Australia. Because of your skills, they are willing to offer you a job and hire you, and the employer is willing to sponsor you. Skilled Independent Visa is not so popular these days because most of the visas that have been available first gives the steps to temporary visa. And then on the condition that you met for a number of years, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on the conditions of the visas granted to you, then there is a pathway to become permanent. So we do get a lot of inquiries through RC & Co lawyers, the team, the lead generators of the firm, wherein we get the usual question, what is the cheapest, what is the quickest way to become permanent, obtain a PR in Australia? The reality is anything that you reap And if you want to receive the best rewards, and in my view, in my experience, you would have that living in Australia, you would have to earn it. And you can see that with the way the visas have been structured. So in other words, there is no cheap way. It will cost. It's just a matter of you making a decision if you want to invest in it. It will take time, and you need to map it out. I'm absolutely sure our guest, Dr. Juno, will give you some more idea about mapping it out. And I'll take you through as well about what it means in mapping it out so that you can reach the road to Australian PR. So skilled independent visa used to be popular before 2010. Australia was just granting it as long as you met the minimum requirements. Nowadays, it's quite hard because this is granted for people who are young, who started work young, who are the best surgeons, the best doctors, the best engineers, the best of high skilled professions. And they have many, 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 many decades to invest and provide their skills and knowledge to Australia. And that's when it's granted, the skilled independent visa. And so because it's capped now, you're competing with so many applicants around the world. So is it the end of the world if you don't qualify for a skilled independent visa? No, because all the other visas, there are many other visas that are available that you could look into, as long as you create and you map out with the appropriate guidance how you could lead towards the Australian PR. There's the temporary work international relations visa that's available. For selected countries, there's the first work and holiday visa. There's also the second work and holiday visa available, but this is only available for selected countries. Next slide, please. We also have, so I've mentioned the first working holiday visa, the second working holiday visa. That's also similar to the earlier visas that I told you, but again, that's only available for selected countries. We've got the seasonal worker program stream, and that's available for particular professions in particular industries and selected countries. So that means, I'll give you an example. For example, the farmers need more workers, but temporarily. What the government does is they help the industry, the farming industry. They make a number of visas available, but this type of visa is only available for selected countries. And they're granted, for example, a 12-month visa. They're allowed to work and they're allowed to tour at the same time. So they enjoy the beauty of Australia, but at the same time, the visa then contributes to the farming industry because of the shortage in the skills and workers, but on temporary basis. There's also the exchange arrangements, and this is usually with student exchange programs. We also have the Pacific Labor Scheme stream, but that's only available for selected countries and if there's an agreement between Australia and a selected country. Next slide, please. Business talent permanent visa is available, and that is for the high skilled executives. So we were talking about a COO, a chief operating officer, a CEO, chief executive officer of another country who has been in that position for a long time, who has applied for a visa and has first followed the temporary step, and then subsequently a permanent visa becomes available. There is a domestic worker visa available if you've got the skill, but that's only available for diplomats. So the domestic worker that supports the diplomats who come in the country. This type of visa is available, for example, for consulars. So in Philippines, the consular in Philippines who has been assigned to, for example, to Victoria, to Melbourne, Victoria, he is permitted to have a domestic worker with him, and that domestic worker who will assist him in home affairs to help with domestic work is granted a visa. So that's only available for diplomats or for consulars. We've got the foreign government agency stream, but this is an agreement between two countries. We also have the research activities for those of you who are academics. If research is carried out, that is another visa that is available. There are training visas available. How similar is this with the student visa? The student visa is where you are enrolled in a university or a college or TAFE. And once you are enrolled, then you are granted a student visa. A training visa not only includes academic or classroom attendance, but it also includes on-job training. So that's also available. So that the applicant can increase their skills that may potentially increase their likelihood and follow a roadmap to Australian PR. We have the graduate visa. The graduate visa is available after a person has studied their bachelor degree in Australia. And then if they do qualify, they can apply for a graduate visa. A graduate visa will allow them to work full-time, and the graduate visa will be granted between a period of 1.5 years to 2 years, depending on what was studied in their student visa program. Next slide, please. So there's the temporary work skills. So this is only for selected professions, and this is only temporarily needed by Australia. This type of visa is granted based on a particular list. We would not give you the list because it changes every 3 months, but we do encourage you to look into the Australian Department of Home Affairs and look at the skilled occupation list and identify which one. Look for your profession and your skill and see whether it falls through some of these or one of these work stream visas that I am discussing. So the short stay specialist visa is granted from 2 to 4 years of stay in Australia. And after that, they would have to exit or look for another appropriate visa that would lead them to Australian PR. That is also similar with a temporary skills shortage visa. And I've mentioned also the skilled regional provisional visa. That's a temporary visa. And it is a pathway. There is a pathway through that visa for permanent residency on the condition that the other elements are met. Another thing with the skilled regional visa, and a lot of this is actually granted these days, is that there is a condition to live in regional Australia and work in regional Australia. Those are important conditions on this type of visas. We've got the regional sponsored migration scheme visa. There are 2 types. One is, you see their employer nomination scheme visa. So you find an employer who has an office or who has their business in regional Australia, regional part of Australia, and they're willing to sponsor you. And your skill is in the list of the skilled occupations list. You would qualify for an employer nomination scheme visa, subject to, of course, complying with all the other requirements. There's also the skilled nominated visa, which is if you apply in the state government's list of occupations, they would nominate you, and then you can apply for a skilled nominated visa. But that application would have to be approved by the certain state. And I do encourage that you reach out to us to find out more as to the type of skilled nominated visa, because nowadays there have been a lot of news coming out that there's been a lot of shortages, because what people are doing as a result of the pandemic is people are moving around occupations. And so what's been happening is that there's shortage in jobs, and that's an opportunity. If I were looking into migrating to Australia, it's an opportunity definitely to look into my skills and see if I can offer something to Australia, and I could qualify for an Australian PR. Next slide, please. We now move on to the third. The third one is if you do not meet. There is one main point with work skilled and that is the age limit. The age limit in the work stream permanent visas is that if you hit 55, it's capped. You can no longer apply for those types of visas. But it's not the end of the world, and we've had discussions with a number of our clients on this, because we have the business or investment stream visas. And some of these visas have no age cap, And some of these visas do have an age cap, but the age cap is 55. Now, we have another live stream where we discuss particularly on business or investment visa, so we do encourage the viewers to look into that. But let me just go through them so that you can have a think as to whether maybe you're not meant to use your skills and knowledge as a worker. Maybe you're meant to be an investor or a business owner. So one of them is there's a particular special program. So it's certain based on the needs at that time of Australia. They have the special program visa. We have the temporary, or what is called the provisional, and we also have the permanent visa, and that's the business, innovation, and investment visa. There's a cap of an amount of investment that you need to put in to own a business. There's also the business owner visa, and there is also a type of visa called state or territory sponsored visa, wherein you would have to propose to the state a particular type of business that you have already been running in your home country that you would like to expand and bring into Australia. Of course, that means that you would have to provide 4 to 5 years of history of your business that you would like to expand into Australia. So this doesn't not necessarily mean that you will leave your home country. This type of visa, in my view, are for people who have things well done in their, they're happy in their home country, but they also would like to expand and look into countries such as Australia, who the global community knows has done really well with this pandemic, and it has kept up to its financial performance, and a business owner would like to take and expand their business in this country. So that's a state or territory sponsored business owner visa or business investor. So you could either invest in an existing business in Australia or bring and expand your business from your home country and expand it in Australia. There's a special category visa under the business or investment stream. And there's also the investor visa, which is actually the PR version. So I'll move on to the next slide. Before I move on to the next slide, I'll bring up the previous slide. So when it comes to business or investment stream, I want to clarify, of course, there would have to be demonstration that funding would be required. I'm not going to go talk down to the details of that, but this suits a person who is running a business or looking into running a business and would like and has an age cap met already, so will not qualify for the work stream visa, but would like to now look into the next stage of their life and become a business owner or an investor, because the stages here is a temporary visa is granted, but there's definitely a pathway to permanent residency. So let's look at the fourth and last category. Next slide, please. So the other options are the global talent visa, and it's for those who are internationally recognized and has a record of exceptional and outstanding achievement. So to those of you who have gotten international awards. There's also the refugee and humanitarian visas, and these are those who are facing or who are aggrieved with the situation that's happening in their country. That's also available. I'm now going to move on to my 2 case studies. It's going to be brief, but these are 2 practical examples of situations that may or may not fit you. So let's move on to the next slide. Before I move on to the next slide, we've got the retirement visa pathway. So this is for those who are, it's a pathway for permanent residency for eligible retirees. And it gives long-term residents who have contributed well in well-established community. So there you can see Australia is targeting the people, certain candidates who have contributed significantly in their society, and Australia is willing to give them a retirement visa here in Australia. And of course, those who have left Australia, who were former permanent residents and they still hold the permanent residency, they also come back, and that's called the former resident visa. Next slide, please. Great, let's look at case study 1.
Hi, Rochelle. I have 2 years professional experience as a welder. I have just completed my Certificate 3 and 4 qualification. I also have an uncle who resides in regional Victoria. Can I immediately apply for a permanent visa?
Let's have a look at this case. So this person has 2 years work experience as a welder, completed Certificate 3 and 4 welding qualification, and they completed it here in Australia. They have an uncle who resides in regional Victoria. So can they immediately apply for a permanent visa is the question. From our experience, the assessing authority, and that's the Trades Recognition Australia. So each profession has a skilled assessor authority, or what we call the assessor. And they have a list of qualifications that would determine whether you have sufficient skills that is similar to an Australian standard skill and knowledge. And for welders, it's the Trade Recognitions Australia, or what we call TRA. And from our knowledge and experience with welders, they actually require at least 3 years work experience, even though a Certificate 3 and 4 welding qualification has been obtained. That said, there's still an opportunity to apply if they find an actual employer who's willing to train them and apply for job ready program, so that they can ultimately qualify and get the skills, the positive skills assessment as a welder. So you notice there's the step. Have your skills assessed first, get the tick or the check from the authority, from the assessor, saying you have the sufficient skills, and then you apply not for a permanent resident visa, but for a temporary visa. Once you get the temporary visa, the door has just been opened bigger for you, which is the next step before you apply for a PR visa. Let's look at case study 2. Next slide, please.
Hi, Rochelle. I would like to file for a permanent visa for both my parents. I have 3 siblings. I am the only permanent resident at the moment. My 2 other siblings will apply for their permanent visa in 1.5 years. When can I apply for my parents' permanent visa?
So this particular candidate aims to file for a permanent visa for both parents. He did say he has 3 sisters, and he said he's the only son who is the permanent resident here in Australia, and his 2 sisters will apply for a permanent resident in 1.5 years. When is it the best time to apply for permanent residency for his parents? Remember when I said that permanent visas for parents are not available, the first step is a temporary visa. After 2 years, that will then automatically roll over to a permanent visa. And I did also mention a family balance test must be met. A family balance test, if you will recall, is where at least half of the children must be at least a permanent resident here before an application is made. So for me, if I were speaking to this candidate, I would be saying wait 1.5 years until both your sisters become permanent residents here in Australia, and then start preparing to file for the temporary visa application for your parents. In the meantime, I'm certain that you want to see your parents, because there are other temporary visas available where your parents can stay here for 3 continuous years, or if you want, 5 continuous years. But that's temporary visa that will not allow them to work, because anyways, I don't think they'll be working because they're usually retirees, but that will allow them to stay here continuously without having to exit. And continuously meaning up to 3 years continuously, or up to 5 years. So there are other types of visas rather than looking at the permanent visa. And I believe this closes my presentation. And before I hand it over to Dr. Juno, I do want to say one thing. everybody wants one thing when they're thinking of migration, and that's being or obtaining permanent visa. My recommendation is for an applicant to not close their vision and not just focus on permanent visa, because if you open your vision and look at the other types of visas, it actually leads you to the staircase towards your final goal, which is PR. So going back to a number of inquiries we receive in another firm, is there a cheap way? Is there an easier way? Is there the quickest way to get RPR? No, but there's definitely a way. And that way has to be carefully planned out, and that requires guidance. That I will ask for the next slide, please. So what we discussed are the 4 categories: family stream, work stream, business or investment stream, type of permanent visas that are available. There are also other options. And we tapped on case study 1 and case study 2. Next slide, please. That closes my portion. I will hand this over to Dr. Juno.
Thank you very much, Attorney Rochelle, for sharing that information with us. Our next speaker is Dr. Juno Parungao is the co-founder of GHCareer Philippines. She is a licensed teacher who has finished her bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She is part of the group that pioneered the teacher certification on positive education in the Philippines, in cooperation with the representatives from the University of Pennsylvania, Quezon City Academy, and Knights of Rizal. She is also the recipient of 3 Gawad Faculty Awards from the UP College of Mass Communication for international publication, 1 woman exhibit, and curatorship of artworks in Claridel Hall. Please welcome Dr. Juno Parungao.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much, Attorney Rochelle, for that helpful information. At our end, we will briefly discuss some terminology and tips that would be helpful for Filipinos planning to migrate to Australia. I won't take so much of your time, so here it goes. Next slide, please. Here are some encouraging stats from the AU Migration website. Didn't you know that at the end of June 2019, 293,770 Filipino-born people were living already in Australia, which is 68% more than the number back in June 2009. This is the 5th largest migrant community in Australia, equivalent to almost 4% of Australia's overseas-born population and 1.2% of Australia's total population. So as you can see, there is a good number supporting that Filipinos will make it to PR in Australia. Next slide, please. Right. Today we're going to talk about who are eligible to migrate to Australia, those who are interested to invest in a business in Australia, those who are already like they have an employer sponsor and skill independence, and those who will take the study pathway, which is the most popular one for most Filipinos. Next slide, please. This table shows that there are more than 5 candidates approved for the business innovation category. These are Filipinos who intend to start a business in Australia. Next slide, please. There are 2,583 Filipino candidates approved who have employer sponsors. Next slide. And there are also a lot of skilled independent candidates approved for migration. 439 is still a large number for skilled independents. Next slide. Just so we are clear, skilled independent pertains to the visa given to those applicants who possess needed skills Australia is looking for. They can live and work permanently anywhere in Australia. Next slide. The employer-sponsored pertains to visas granted to those who already have a work placement waiting for them in Australia. Next slide. Filipinos interested to invest in business in Australia is also very welcome and are granted this visa. Next slide, please. This one is very popular among students because once granted a student visa, they can apply for part-time work and get themselves some Australian work experience as they complete their studies there as well. Next slide, please. Let us talk briefly about the criteria for migration, starting with the first one, nominated occupation. Means the identifying of a position to be filled by an overseas skilled worker, such as ourselves in a business. Age means you must be below 45 years old to qualify or to be eligible. C, you have to pass an English proficiency exam like the IELTS. GHCareer can assist you with this. There are two kinds of IELTS, by the way. For those taking the study pathway, you will have to take the IELTS for academics. For those who will take the migration route, they will have to take the IELTS for general training. Next, skilled employment pertains to the matching of your skills found in the skilled occupation list for Australian migration, also found in the website. Australian qualification, lastly, pertains to your educational background, among other credentials, which we can assess for you once you email us your resume. We can also help you by matching Australian qualification courses that suit your migration goals. As mentioned by Attorney Rochelle, this is one way of mapping out your road to Australian PR. Next slide, please. Right. For those who are interested to apply a skilled independence, when you are ready, you can submit what they call an EOI, also known as the expression of interest. If you are a skilled worker or a business person who want to migrate to Australia, this is not a visa application, mind you, and there is no fee. Okay, there is no fee for submitting an EOI. You select the skilled independent visa subclass 189 in the website, and you will receive an email confirming that you have submitted your EOI. Next slide, please. After you submit your EOI, Skill Select will estimate your points based on the claims you've made. You must have an estimated score of at least 65 to be invited to apply for this visa. If you score enough points, there are places allocated for your occupation and you might be invited to apply. Next slide. You will be invited to apply for a visa if, number one, you score enough points on your EOI, and number two, there are places available for your occupation. The good news is the Australian government really allocates places for skilled migration to meet their government's migration planning levels. So once you are invited, that you have 60 calendar days to apply for this visa and there are no extensions. Next slide, please. You could receive an invitation for up to 2 years after submitting an EOI. If you are invited to apply, you will receive an email from the Skills Select. But getting an invitation does not automatically mean that you will be granted a visa. Next slide, please. The invitation will include an indicative point score based on your EOI claims. When you apply for the visa, you must be able to show, so that you're not lying, that you meet the points score on your invitation and meet all the eligibility criteria. Next slide. Okay, we have to take note that you will be invited to apply for a visa twice. If you do not apply after the second invitation, your EOI will be removed from the database. Your application for visa will not be processed if you are 45 years old at the time of your invitation. So you will have to make a decision fast before you guys reach the age of 45, ideally. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, thank you. This illustrates, as you're looking at the picture right now, this illustrates the process for filing your EOI. You should first check if your occupation is on the skilled occupation list. If you have 65 points, then you are eligible. Next, you submit an expression of interest in skills select, and you wait. You wait for the invitation to apply for a visa. And while doing that, this is a good time for consulting your career specialist and gather your documents. We can also help you with that. And then apply for visa within 60 days of invitation. Next slide, please. All right, so here is an overview of our services and how we can help you achieve your goals. We specialize in study to work and migrate assistance. This could be a very good road to PR with the following services. We can assess your eligibility. We can do student placements by matching university to your goals, visa processing, visa documentation, migration assessment as well, preparation and registration for international English proficiency exams. Now, let me tell you something about this very quickly. Some Filipinos get so excited with the English exams that they think they are paying for the exam expected in the workplace or in the school that they're going to. Mind you, it is not the same for everybody. Nurses will have a different exam for English. Students will have a different exam, so it's best to consult us so that you do not waste money on that. The same thing with the Australian migration. We can also do the same set of services for you. You just need to email us your resume, and then we can talk how we can help you and how you will achieve your PR goals as quick as possible, as humanly possible. And next slide, please. For more inquiries, do not hesitate to contact us. You can email your resume to @GHCareer. Our consultant's name is Miss Eileen. And she's been doing student placement for almost like more than 20 years. And this is our office mobile number, our website, www.ghcareer.com, www. And we are located in the second floor of FRDC building. We are in Pasig City. You can text us and you can drop by in our office, and you will find there our social media accounts as well. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Juno, for that very informative presentation. Now everyone, what do you have in mind at this moment? I'm sure you have your list of questions out there. No worries, because you will be given the opportunity to ask a question to our speakers. All you have to do is leave your questions in the comments section and we will show them on screen for everyone's information.
Hi, Dr. Juno.
Hello, Attorney Rochelle.
Yes, I believe we have our Q&A session.
All right.
And there are questions. Yes.
Let's have our questions. Okay, the first question is, are all visa applicants required to take an English test?
No. It's only those who are applying for skills. If it's a skilled stream visa or a work stream visa, and also if it's a business or innovation stream visa. These two categories that I've mentioned require certain level of English skills, but any other types of visas outside of that do not require this English test.
All right. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is, if I study in Australia, will that subsequently guarantee me a permanent visa?
No. And that's why we called this particular live stream, It's the Road. It's mapping out your plan. Getting a visa to study is not Australia's promise that they will make you permanent. It is the applicant's job to make sure that they plan their student visa pathway and make sure that they get the right skills and knowledge through their studies that is based on the skills. There's a skilled occupations list that I've mentioned earlier, and it should all be planned out. And I encourage the viewers, to you who's thinking about studying first and then going to the PR road, get the appropriate guidance and make sure that you have the right plan. It's not about setting foot into Australia and thinking you're going to be permanent there. It's actually about planning before you step foot so that your plans of the PR can happen.
Right. And I think that is where GH Career comes in, because we offer the assessment and guidance for students who are interested to study in Australia, so they could really check if what the course or diploma that they're enrolling into would add up to the points that Australia government is looking for their road to PR.
Absolutely. I absolutely recommend that.
Okay, thank you so much. How about the next question? May we see that, please? Okay, how many years do I have to study to guarantee a permanent visa in Australia? So this is like a similar question to the former one.
It all depends on your background. It all depends on if you have a previous bachelor degree, if you have two bachelor degrees in your home country or Philippines, and then you're studying master's degree. And it all depends if that's in the skilled occupations list. So it's not about how long you study in Australia. It's
All
about
right.
making sure that, again, it's about mapping out your road towards the right path so that it leads to your permanent visa.
So it means that you will have to identify the appropriate or the correct course that will lead you to that path. It's not the number of years. It doesn't really matter.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Do we have another question? All right. So what are the popular pathways for Pinoys like us?
Actually, Dr. Jun, I appreciated your slide there when you set out since up until 2019, the
Yes.
graph on the entrance into Australia.
That's
And
correct.
it's employer sponsored is what I saw. That's actually the answer to the question, the popular pathways. So it's all a lot says about the numbers that you showed about network. And network includes getting an employer in Australia and then them sponsoring them. And of course, it's not just about getting an employer for any job.
All
It's
right.
getting an employer based on the skilled occupations list. So there's that list that I'm saying, the magic list that you can see and get in the Department of Home Affairs. And then finding the employer who's willing to sponsor you. And of course, the employer here in Australia who would have to sponsor you is required or is bound by following the laws, meaning they have to pay the employee the standard pay. So it's actually a very good thing for employer-sponsored visa holders.
Because so we get a lot of inquiries from our end, IT professionals, and I believe there is a demand for such service in Australia, and they are looking at hiring Filipino IT professionals. So that could be employer sponsored.
Absolutely. And we've had discussions in the office and with colleagues and peers that I have about employers, Australian employers looking for overseas employees. It's also the attitude. So it's not just all about the skills, but they're looking into overseas because there's special talents as well. So the attitude towards work and the special skill that the employee offers. So to those of you who believe that you have something to offer, really have a think about that. Go back to this recording and look at the numbers that Dr. Juno has said, particularly Filipino applicants, because the numbers say a lot about them looking into Filipino applicants when it comes to employer-sponsored visas.
All right. I think we have a question from one of the viewers. It's from Mr. Abad. And he says, hi, what if my current occupation isn't in the skilled independent category? Would it be recommended to study first in AU, then transition to eventually working there or gain experience here in the Philippines? Thank you, Marcus, for that question.
In my view, you could do either way. So there are people, either way meaning, I'm looking at your question, recommended to study, could study here if you want to experience the culture. And there's also additional points if you study here. So there's that reward if you invest your studies in Australia. Or you can get the your work experience there and get the necessary education there if you don't have that particular education for that occupation in the list. But keep in mind age factor. I didn't only just mention that. Dr. Juno also mentioned that. So the magic number is 45, and you should plan. It runs out unless you want to look at the other one. As I said, it's not the end of the world if you don't, fall into the category of work stream. You can always look at the business innovation or investor visas. But if we're talking about your question, either way could work, but have a look at your age and then plan it out, move backwards, and have discussions in the industry with the specialists in this industry so that you can map out. I always say it's all about mapping out, because if you take the wrong steps or you take the wrong street, it's harder to go back and start over, because that means many, many years, especially if you're
Going
thinking
back to
about
square one.
Exactly. And I've seen that a lot, Dr. June. I've seen that a lot, unfortunately.
Oh, all right. And I guess we also have some inquiries about early education, teaching early graders. I believe Australia is looking for teachers who can handle that. And it will be very good for you to take your schooling, your diploma on early childhood education, take it in Australia. And then when you're there, you can transition into their system. Isn't that correct, Attorney Rochelle?
Yep, that's a very good example. And there's a number of those who have done that because they're gaining also the Australian work experience. Yes, which is another important element when it comes to the point system for work stream visas.
Because I believe certain schools have work placements for their students, and that will be very helpful for those who are planning to land in this career in Australia.
Yep, it's all about the investments, and you've just actually mentioned important elements when it comes to investing your studies in Australia, because the universities are quite serious when they're helping international students so that it could set them up. So there's an exchange of that investment, that financial investment, but there's a lot of rewards, absolutely a lot of rewards, especially if you are thinking about the PR road.
The yellow brick road.
Pretty much.
To the Emerald City. You better not miss that.
No, not for these, not for this topic, definitely.
All right.
It's been a pleasure having this live stream with GHCareer, and thank you for being part of it, Dr. Juno. Thank you for your time, and
thank you.
We hope that the viewers have learned from this live stream. Reach out to either our Cinco lawyers, reach out to GHCareer. You've got the details in this live stream, and thank you very much. We will see you in our next live stream. Have a good day, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you, Attorney Rochelle, Dr. Juno. So that ends everything for this event. We hope you get something from our discussion today. And if you have more questions or clarifications in mind, you can reach us on the details shown on your screen. You can also message us through our social media platforms. Once again, thank you. This is Desiree. See you all at our next event.
Passengers for flight GHCareer.
RC and co-lawyers offer our services in immigration law. In this subfield of law, you will learn about the many subclasses made available by the Minister and the Department of Home Affairs, including visitor visas, study and training visas, family and partner visas, working and skilled visas, and refugee and humanitarian visas, as well as other visa avenues particular to your circumstances, including resident return visas and bridging visas. We also offer our services and guidance in citizenship applications, merits appeals, and judicial review on immigration matters. If you have questions in relation to Australia immigration matters, please do not hesitate to contact us at RC & Co Lawyers.